As we celebrate Jeff's life, I'm going to move from the least significant to the most significant. And even as you hear first about the least significant, you will begin to grasp the magnitude of this loss in ways you may not have realized, even for those of you who grew up with Jeffrey Manis your entire lives. When you start out as an assistant rabbi, the three most important criteria, if you're looking at a mega congregation, are not location, 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 but senior rabbi, senior rabbi, senior rabbi. And when you become a senior rabbi, the most important criteria for choosing a congregation are two things: who the lay leaders are and who the executive director is. I succeeded Rabbi Danziger over 11 years ago. I started with Jeff Manis, and he has been the best executive director for this senior rabbi. Why? Because when our staff went home for Shabbat or the weekend, or when the rabbi's office was closed on Mondays, or when my phone rang, and it does in the middle of the night, Jeff was there, always willing to be there for the thousands of members we serve in this major religious center, which is home to over 150 life cycle ceremonies a year. And so that you don't think I'm exaggerating, 63 bar and bat mitzvahs, 14 weddings, 40 combined memorial services and funerals, 9 conversions, 15 baby namings, the rest are anniversaries and other simchas. And that's not even managing a $4 million budget, 2 campuses, staffing the daily operational needs of one of America's leading synagogues in youth work, technology, spiritual fulfillment, contemporary Jewish music, religious community, and the greater community. And when a member is not in crisis, not just when the rest of the world works, but when a member is in crisis between sundown tonight and Monday, or God forbid someone dies, and you call the temple number, you're not given my number, you're given Jeff Manis's number. He took the call. It says in the Mishnah, "Aseh lecha rav u'kaneh lecha chaver," get yourself a teacher rabbi and acquire yourself a friend. I loved being Jeff's rabbi, and he was my friend and confidant on the big matters that only a senior rabbi and executive director can understand. Anyone here who has been in senior management can relate. You hire great people in different departments, from support staff to clergy to different divisions, and then you need someone at the top who buys into the vision of moving temple to the very best in the Jewish world and helps you implement it no matter what bumps or obstacles or complaints you encounter from others. I could not have done it without Jeff Manis. No way. And the outpouring of emails and calls I've received, including from people who belong here, who I barely know, has been staggering to me. And he never talked about it. We live in 3 worlds here: the world of the Memphis Jewish community with lots of other agencies, rabbis, synagogues; the world of the greater Memphis community, which is the other half of this sanctuary circle. Our emphasis on Tikkun Olam, helping Memphis become all she can be. The third world is the world of the national reform movement, where Memphis people don't know just how beloved Jeff is. When Jeff came on board, as I began my tenure as senior rabbi, another past president named Rudy Scheidt, Sr., said to me over lunch, "Micah, in a large congregation, the executive director's position is 7 jobs. There's administration, finance, personnel, board relations, staff oversight, the pastoral side we've heard about from the rabbis in Cantor, being on the front lines with families, facilities, operations. It's a Superman job," Rudy said, "and nobody is Superman. Get him a mentor." Since we are part of a small circle of vibrant and thriving large congregations in the Union for Reform Judaism, there were 4 he and I discussed, and he did it on his own. Steve Brewer of Wilshire Boulevard Temple in Los Angeles, who has since retired. Olivia Thompson of Central Synagogue in Manhattan, who's watching. And these two men beside our president in the second row. Rick Rosenberg of Temple Emmanuel in Dallas, and Mark Jacobson of the Temple in Atlanta. They have been in constant contact with me, not just as if a colleague has died, but as though a family member has passed away. Mark Jacobson wrote to me, "I am beyond saddened. A career highlight in my professional life has been getting to know Jeff, learning with him, and simply just being with him, hanging out together at all our conventions." Back in Memphis, beyond our synagogue and the other Jewish congregations, Canali funeral directors, who, as you know, handle close to 400 funerals a year, representing dozens of churches, Protestant, Catholic, all the synagogues, and other houses of worship. The entire Canali family has literally been in shock since the onset of Jeff's sudden stroke. They're all here today, the entire Canali team, not out of obligation toward Temple, but out of the deepest love and respect for Jeff. They said to me, and I quote, one of the nights I can't remember from the hospital, they said, "Rabbi, in our work dealing with congregations of every faith, Jeff was the best to work with, the best." His contribution in helping me, 6 Temple presidents, our board, and our congregation move through personnel change after personnel change, including 4 of the rabbis, has been nothing less than staggering. Whether it was his early morning check-in with me on a Saturday morning when most Jews beyond the minyan don't attend, that's your morning off perhaps, unless it's a bar mitzvah, or whether it's a Friday night at midnight when we do answer the phone if someone dies, or if it's a Sunday morning after a Saturday night wedding when we have early morning work to do, while other Jews are working out or out of town, enjoying the weekend, Jeff was always here, or would get here if I called 337-8773. It's a number I call more than my wife. My wife Cheryl put it well as we were leaving the sanctuary 2 nights ago on Sukkot Eve. She said, "It just feels so strange being in this wonderful temple without Jeff in it." You regulars who attend Friday evening know that for many years the first 2 smiling faces to greet you and wish you Shabbat Shalom are Rebecca the Fox, her real name is Rebecca Fox, and Jeff, alongside her, smiling as you enter the doors of Temple every Friday evening. And for the past 3 years, it was 3 smiling faces wishing you Shabbat Shalom: Becky, Sharon, Nickel, and Jeff Manis. In many ways, running a major congregation is like the architecture of this sanctuary. Lots of people in different seats below, from lay people to staff, to our leaders, to newcomers, visitors, guests who just walk in, all asking, wanting, or needing something. There's an old adage that where there are 2 Jews, there are 3 opinions. We are known in the Bible as an Am Kashei Oref, a stiff-necked people. In fact, the first Jewish family in the book of Numbers were the whiners. As God's beloved, we wondered why the food was so bad in the desert. It's too hot. It's too cold. We needed lieutenants who knew how to take all the complaints from Moses and Aaron with a smile. We needed a person great at hospitality, constantly having to adapt to different lay and religious leaders, as well as those who were there before him. But that wasn't even close to Jeff's greatest contribution. Everyone here knows, if you've been in senior management, you don't just need people on the dance floor. You need someone who's willing to go up to the balcony with the rabbi and say, "I'm in," Every leading synagogue, and we've become one, doesn't just have fine lay leaders and rabbis. Every senior rabbi needs an executive director who can be a co-builder of a vision. Name any great congregation or senior rabbi. Rick. Rabbi Stern would say he can't do it without Rick. Rabbi Berg, Rabbi Sugarman certainly couldn't have done it without Mark Jacobson. Manhattan couldn't have done it without Livia. And here, what's the story here? When Rabbi Danziger announced his plans to retire in 1998, he and I were co-rabbis in 1999, which gave me a full year to think hard about renewing Temple in the 21st century. And when that transition occurred, you may recall, the economy was heading south. The Jewish community in Memphis was fragmenting into smaller synagogues, with people going other places, starting small places, even though the demographics cried out for a strong religious center to serve as a magnet for Jewish life in West Tennessee, Mississippi, Arkansas, and the Boot Heel. Temple had great rabbis in the 19th and 20th centuries, a storied past. But what about a vibrant Judaism for today and tomorrow? Jeff Manis not only said I'm in, he told me, whatever it takes, I'm here to do it. We started 2000 under Sherry Samuel's presidency, and with Jeff, we launched the most successful renewal campaign in the history of this entire Memphis Jewish community. Bob Sampson, Billy Orgel, Ira Littman co-chaired it, Nick Ringel coordinated it, 1,000 people participated in it, $28 million was raised, and Jeff was the constant staff person behind it. And then 9/11 hit, and the naysayers and the complainers and the whiners said, no way. We not only met our goal, we exceeded it. And then Kenneth Wurzburg led us. Jeff oversaw the 150th anniversary of Tennessee's oldest and largest synagogue, this one. It led to the book by Judy Ringel, Major Construction, as we turn this building into a campus, and our cemetery campus too, all under Jeff's directorship. Then came the president, who now represents us nationally in the reform movement, but his real baby was overseeing the rebuilding of Temple. His name is Mark Halperin, and he'll tell you he worked alongside Jeff every day. Then came Arnold Pearl, who said wisely to Jeff and me, Temple needs a communications director. You see, throughout the past 11 years, we had Rabbis Cohen, Rabishaw, the Feldmans, rabbinic interns, Barb Gelb, our educator. And whenever new staff came on board, it would all go under Jeff. All the transitions, all the contracts. Sharon Nichols has been here 3 years, but 8 years before, Jeff juggled it all. He would come in to my study every day as my right-hand man and confidant. I would ask him one question. It's a question my LA senior rabbi friend always asks his executive director. It's just 3 words. Are we secure? And Jeff would reply, no worries, Chief, we're secure. When Ishti Bardos came on board as our communications director, Jeff told me after a few months, he's good, but while I'm his supervisor, I don't know that much about communications. So maybe we can work it out where I help him achieve what's possible for him with you and others involved as much as can be. So we unleashed Ishti, Jeff did, Arnold, Billy and I went to hire Rabbi Grossman and Rabbi Bowman, and now we're looked to under Jeff's directorship as the very best in our entire movement for streaming, communications, social media, all under Jeff's reign. Listen, and again, this is the least significant of his achievements, this whole section. Listen to what the consultant Richard Reinhardt said after interviewing every staff member and surveys with this membership and leadership 5 years ago. He writes, as a lifelong member of Temple, I never appreciated the challenge of the executive director's job. Things just worked. As a consultant to the Temple, I realized that Jeff may have one of the most challenging of all jobs. He had so many bosses with a variety of interests and opinions that he recognized the best approach was to do what was right. Thus, his decisions never pleased everyone, but they were the right decision for the greatest number of people. The recession of 2008-2009 devastated churches and synagogues across America, and Billy Orgel came into his presidency with Jeff with a 6-figure deficit and things getting worse. Jeff said, Rabbi, I said, call me Micah. He said, okay, Rabbi. He He said, Rabbi, my job is temple business and yours is the business of temple, Judaism. We'll be all right. Sure enough, Billy guided Jeff to a balanced budget at the darkest time for so many of our member families. Before Jeff, we had a great early learning center, not one of the 3 in the entire city, and the only Jewish one, with the highest accreditation for every age group of children from 9 months through kindergarten. Of course, Susan Feld got us there, just as Barb Gelb has made Temple known for Jewish education and high school, and Bar Bat Mitzvah has evolved to become second to none. But the one who oversaw it all is the executive director, who was a servant of the Jewish people and the sweet, nice man who was never too busy to help the poor Russian Jewish immigrant member of Temple find a resting place with no money in our Temple cemetery at no charge. Many of the things he did for members, total strangers, who called here are not known by the staff or longtime members or even the many rabbis and clergies I've worked with. Jeff just took care of it. Our current president, Nancy Robinson, is so aware of that. She turned me down today. Another standout in a long line of great presidents. I asked Nancy to speak before me because she's one of the most phenomenal, understated, level-headed, wise, and extraordinary leaders I have ever worked alongside. She's so solid and steady, and yet she said, I've given your request to speak today a lot of consideration, and as much as I would be honored to represent Temple, I just don't think I can emotionally do it. I guess the President's Handbook didn't have a chapter on how to mourn the loss of your executive director. I need some time to personally accept this loss, so I'm going to have to reflect silently. She didn't go 2 days without talking to him. Every president had their own special relationship with Jeff. Or as Jeff told Arnold Pearl on Yom Kippur, when Arnold said that Jeff looked great last week, Jeff smiled, looked at Arnold and said, I've survived 5 Temple presidents and I'm on my 6th. I met with the Temple staff at 1 o'clock before this service, and everyone is grieving this loss. Jeff was very fond of saying, the answer is yes, what's the question? That stemmed from Jeff's background in customer service and making people happy, whether at the Hilton or at Temple, as Ishti Bardos said. And at a Temple, making people happy isn't always as easy as it sounds. Jeff's 2 favorite expressions were, the answer is yes, what's the question, followed with, how can we move forward? Back to our members. My question last Friday night to our immediate past president, Billy Orgel, was what made you think of suggesting that? As he came back to me in front of the ark following Kol Nidre. What moved you to ask me to consider inviting Jeff to sit in the chair of honor up here on the bima, alongside Temple's trustees and presidents, and shower praise on him on the holiest day of the year? After Jeff suffered this stroke, I asked Billy, what made you think of suggesting that? And he said, I don't know. I don't know where it came from. And when I thought about that great idea, I acted on it immediately, and I asked Jeff at 10:45 p.m. a week ago tonight if he would sit alongside Temple leaders 12 hours later, the next day. Don't worry about alerting staff about the setup. I said, I'll gladly carry another chair out there for you. You know what Jeff said? I'm so honored by the invitation, Micah. Probably said rabbi. But only if you put me near the exit so I can tend to all the members and guests who will need me. Jeff loved Temple, would do anything he could for Temple. He didn't grow up here, but he ended up running it. Just as he ran the Jackson, Tennessee Temple before coming here when they didn't even have a rabbi. As large as we are, and I'm going to end this part, but this is important. The feeling of devastation since Jeff's stroke is a testament to the family feeling in the congregation whose operation he led. I work with the same 20-plus staff every day, but since Monday, I've heard from so many members Jeff took care of, I've honestly lost count. Just 3 of dozens I've selected after hours of reading, and they're still coming in to show you how much our entire Temple family is grieving. First, these aren't long. Jeff arranged for my grandfather, who is 92, to be next to where Jason is right now, in the front in his wheelchair throughout the High Holy Days. My grandfather wouldn't leave Temple until he had personally spoken with 2 people, you, Rabbi, and Jeff Manis. We finally found Jeff, who made the point not only of saying hello, but visiting with us for a few minutes. When he was in better health, my grandfather, he would come to Temple to see Rabbi Greenstein and wind up talking for 30 minutes to Jeff Manis, always reporting back how wonderful Jeff was. Hope he liked me. Another member of dozens writes, we all lost a true friend, and most important, Temple lost its ambassador. Upon every visit to Temple, John Scharf writes, I could see Jeff, whether in his office, his hallway, getting coffee, in the lobby, to the sanctuary. He always had a smile, would say, welcome, how are you, and how is your family? And those words were always said with the most sincerity. I valued him as a friend, and as the ambassador I knew. His loyalty to Temple was unquestioned, and his love of the congregants was always felt. When my wife and I ran the Mom and Pops event for a number of years, he was so supportive, always available, always helpful, always present, no matter the time of day, and always smiling. He was simply one hell of a guy. And finally, from one of the co-chairs of this unprecedented Gift for Generations campaign, Bob Thompson, he says, everyone in the Temple family is overwhelmed with grief. Words are inadequate. Expressions of sympathy, although sincere, fall short. However, the important thing to remember is that Jeff's was a life well lived. I came to know and admire him during this campaign, and he was not only capable, but always kind and patient, the personification of a gentleman. That in itself is a precious legacy. My final comment, in this least important, is something to think hard about. We've learned once again this week that the size of a synagogue or any religious house of worship has no relationship, no correlation to coldness or warmth. Some think that smaller houses of worship in whatever faith are warmer because they're smaller, but the reverse is often true. Small places can develop cliques, factions, breakups, while larger congregations like ours, which still have many villages, subgroups, with strong opinionated individuals. But despite our size, we've learned that we can be a warm, personal, extended home, and that's because of Jeff, even for 1,600 households. The way Jeff's death has shaken us, you would think we were a congregation of 50 families, not 1,550. And that's because he sat with me in the balcony and taught me that you never have to become petty or resentful of other people. Like his dad and son's namesake, Irving, Jeff never spoke ill of people who spoke ill of him. In my supervisory sessions with him, after hearing what someone said or complained about, I offered to call in a Billy or a Nancy, one of our high-minded leaders, someone to get this person with an agenda off his back. But Jeff just said, it's okay, Rabbi, we're secure. Let's move forward. So when I told the commercial appeal that his legacy of helping carry Temple to its pinnacle will always be cherished, I wasn't talking about the money we've raised or the world-class Jewish vision we're implementing. It's the family feeling of this large synagogue I was referring to. Just like Memphis, a major city that's still an overgrown small town. Finally, Temple trustee, CFO of Buckman and lifelong member of this congregation, David Rosenthal, whose daughters were named here, went to preschool here, became B'nai Mitzvah here, confirmed here, graduated here, echoed what many who have sat at the top understand, looking at a major operation, not from the floor, but from the balcony view. He said, Jeff Manus will be very hard to replace. You just don't find public servants like him. And friends, everything I've said up to now is the least important of his achievement. What's more major? One of the reasons we go out to the sukkah this week is to remind us that no matter how big your house is or what you have in it, the fragility of the sukkah, as the 14th century great classic literature, Minorat HaMaor, reminds us, none of that stuff matters. It's the people who make your house a home. The sukkah reminds us that things in life that are the most fragile are the most precious, and the things that are the most precious are the most fragile, including life itself. And Jeff's human touch with family and friends was even greater than what he did for our temple. Just ask the childhood friends he rode bikes with near the old Baron Hirsch on Warfield. Just ask you neighbors on Dunwoody, or childhood friends from Richland. Just ask his Perry's buddies from AZA. Gail Stein-Woloshin, and again, I'm being so selective. For everyone I'm reading, there are at least 13 more. I first met Jeff in high school when I was in Brenner BBG, and he was our beau. I remember this skinny boy. I never knew him skinny. With a big mop of brown curly hair and glasses. I also remember how laid back and nice he was. He was always the nicest guy. Friends here know that, like his brother, Ricky Rosenblum. And so do the most important people in the world to Jeff, his family. Everyone here has heard about Jeff and Cindy's greatest pride, Ashley and Jason. But listen to what Ashley and Jason wrote to their daddy just after God received him back yesterday. This is from Ashley. Dear Daddy, my supporter, my best friend, you are the most amazing person I know. I cannot even put into words how strong of a person you have made me. We have become very, very close, and I am grateful you had the chance to see me get better. I will never forget the look on your face when I showed you how I could jump again. You were so proud of me. You were always proud of me. No matter how small or big the accomplishment, you made me feel so good about myself. Together we could get through anything. I have to have faith that you will continue to help me. The only difference is it will be through God now. You were awesome at giving me advice, things I never would have thought of. Daddy, I do not want to worry about us. I'm so grateful that we have so many people that are here to help. You are loved by so many people and have touched so many people by just being you. I promise you that I will continue to move forward as you would want me to. You have guided my life in so many positive ways, and I am thankful for the time we spent together. I will make you proud. You know I love you very much. I always will be your beautiful baby girl, Ashley. And Jason writes, Dear Dad, we have truly been through it all. The good, the bad, the pain, and the happiness. Through the good times and the bad, there has always been one person that I look to first. A phone call I'd make after playing a good game, after doing well on a test, after anything exciting happened in my life. The phone call that would simply make my day, that's you, Dad. Although part of me says that I will miss these conversations, I know that they will continue to be a part of my life, as I know that you are just a prayer away. I know that you'll always be there with me, everywhere I go. And in times of need, I know I can ask you for advice, even in the toughest of situations, knowing that only you will have the answer. You'll have the best seat in the house, not only at my baseball games, but in my life. Through all of my good times and bad, watching down, smiling as your son continues to make you proud. You live life to the fullest, touching so many people in ways that words cannot even explain. I know it won't be easy, but somehow I will find a way to move on with my life just as you would want. Living every day for you, through you, and with you. I love you, Daddy. You are my best friend and always will be. Your son, Jason. And Jason, while he took so much pride in you, the overlooked SEC baseball player who walked on at UT, or the gritty MUS football player, I hope you know, and I have to say it, that it wasn't really about baseball or football for him. I have to miss all the Friday night and Saturday games, for obvious reasons as a rabbi. So he would come into my study on Saturday mornings and I'd ask, so how'd it go at South Panola? Or what happened with that new baseball coach at UT? And your dad would shift the subject from my interest in knowing whether you won to his gratitude for what your involvement with these teams has done for you turning into a man. I'd want to know scores, and he'd start talking about this or that baseball family or college roommate family or all these people you know, Jason. And he'd talk about how they're such fine people. And when your dad mentioned these people, Jason, it was never about what they had or didn't have. Talk about a rare trait, Ashley and Jason. Your dad not only treated all people the same, he wasn't resentful as many people are of those who have more. He wasn't envious. He didn't care. He only cared about the miracle you both are and the good people you're becoming. When your mom and dad married over 20 years ago, thanks to you, Cindy, Judaism didn't end with Jeff. Your embrace of Judaism and raising such great Jewish kids from Memphis to Jackson to Murfreesboro to this day was a dream that neither you nor Jeff could ever imagine on your wedding day. I think your smile and Jeff's are about the miracle of seeing it all through no matter what. And Jason and Ashley are living proof. But you, Cindy, expressed it best when you wrote, "My husband was my best friend and the love of my life. He was my knight in shining armor. Words cannot express how I cherish the person he was. His life was about meaning and purpose, the importance of giving rather than receiving. Jeff's gift to all of us is an example of living life to its fullest. He will forever live in the hearts of all of us, especially our two jewels, Ashley and Jason." But it doesn't end with Cindy, Jason and Ashley, or Cindy's wonderful parents, or sister-in-law Tamara and Gary. Cindy and Tamara's parents, Jeff's wonderful father and mother-in-law, JB and Sylvia, wrote, "Jeff Manis, our son-in-law, cherished friend, whether together or apart, every day, all day. Why? Because of the love, peace, and understanding we shared. We will always remember Jeff's big smile, the friendly hello, and most of all, the big teddy bear hug." But Shirley Manis, Mops, brought this teddy bear into the world. And while there is a feeling of loss only she can know, there is a depth of love only a mother can know for her child. Every relationship is unique, and I know Jeff was more like your husband Irving in personality than anyone in the family. But Shirley, I know that he moved beside you last Saturday at Yizkor after making sure the other 1,000 people here were settled. He may have taken care of others, but his eyes were always on you, Mops. And then there were the two who shared a bathroom with Jeff in childhood, and who would be the first to say that he got the sweet genes. Lori and Stacy were the bookends to his childhood. Elkin, too, since Lori and Elkin have been together since Elkin's bar mitzvah. Here's what Lori wanted to say with Stacy. "Micah, I always have such special memories of Jeff. It's hard to believe my brother is really gone. Dear Jeff," she writes, "when we were kids, you would torture Stacy and me by standing on our hair or taking a dirty sponge and rubbing it in our face or trying to drown me in the swimming pool. But at the same time, Stacy and I worshiped the ground you walked on, brother. Passover and Thanksgiving will never be the same without you. Jeff, you amaze me how no matter what curves life threw you, you always seemed happy. You never let things get you down. You were a great role model and treated everyone with respect. I can't remember you ever saying an unkind word about anyone. I'm going to miss your smiling face every time our family walks into temple. Love, Lori. And it doesn't end there. Jeff was devoted to temple, but he was wedded to his family, including all the aunts and uncles and cousins, his nieces, Jessica, Heidi, Amanda, and Mimi, nephew Frank, and a nephew named Logan, who had one arm around the shoulder of Ashley and his other arm around the shoulder of Jason at the foot of Jeff's bed yesterday as Jeff breathed his last breath. And on Facebook, where hundreds of youth and adults have written, Logan wrote, "Rest in peace, Uncle Jeff. I love you so much and will always be there for your family." My friends, in closing, feel sad for this family, I do. But just hope someday, as I do too, that you experience the kind of love and unconditional love that I have experienced around them. Jeff, you are back with your cousins and your dad just around the corner, somewhere very close, where all is well. And we'll be with you someday too. But in the meantime, we will carry on everything you would want us to. Judaism and Temple Israel, and above all else, support for your family we love so much. Rest in peace, dear friend. We will keep things secure, positive, and moving forward, just the way you'd want us to. Amen.